in the schus of Rav Yosef Shlomo ben Risha, that he should have a refuah shlema ukreva, and that should continue to see very, very immediate and continuous progress in his journey back to complete health. Want to say Mazel Tov to our classmate Chani Rappaport for the Sudas Haidah for her husband tonight, Rav Yaakov Tuvia Rappaport, Baruch Hashem, Haidul Hashem, that he is able to make this Sudas Haidah. Big Mazel Tov to our classmate Zizi Raskin on the Bas Mitzvah of her granddaughter, Rivka Wilhelm. Big Mazel Tov to our classmate Orit, who has a new great-granddaughter, Ariella Naomi Kagan. Our classmate Chaya Posner celebrated her grandson's bar mitzvah last week, and Hindi Borenstein's son Shalom Ber became a chassan to Basi and Druzier. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov to everybody. Kreis Chassidish Nachas, Mitay Charchava, Gesundheit, and Freiligkeit. And a big welcome back to our classmate Chana Perlman. Again, a big Mazel Tov on the simcha of her son's wedding, and welcome back to the States. And hopefully we will all go back to Eretz Yisrael together with you immediately.
Amen.
Again, it's the second sicha of the project this week. Oh, okay. I thought it was Hindi Borenstein's son, but see correction, it's Hindi Borenstein's nephew. Should just be simchas for everyone. Aleph, Sif Aleph. This is a Rashi sicha, or a sicha about the non-existence of a Rashi, and it's on Psukim Aleph, mostly Pasuk Aleph in Perek Chav Hey. So it's easier if you see the pasuk and the Rashi inside. So again, Perek Chav Hey, pasuk Aleph, Parshas Kiseitze. Kfar nizbar b'mkemes rabim. The Rebbe says it's been explained in many places. Sherashi b'perushay al-Torah miyashiv kol she'ela ha'alula liz'er b'lima b'shut shel mikra. That Rashi, in his perush on the Torah, different from his perush on the Gemara, he addresses or reconciles every question that can possibly arise regarding the Pshuta Shel Mikra, the simple explanation of the Psukim. Ubemakim she'ein Rashi might say biur al pi derech hapshat, and in places where Rashi does not find an explanation that conforms with the pshat, l'sha'ela b'pasuk mesuyam ay b'teva mesuyemes, and there seems to be a question in a particular verse or in a particular word. Ukaisiv, Rashi writes, lo yadati, I don't know. In other words, Rashi does not hold back from saying, I don't know how to reconcile this question, I don't know the answer. He doesn't obfuscate, and generally, he looks to explain every question that arises of pshat. So when he doesn't do that, it's very noteworthy. So from this we understand that when there is a verse and there is a particular difficulty that arises, Rashi and Rashi does not stop on that question. Rashi does not raise that question. So this in itself, that Rashi does not address what seemingly is a question, is a proof that according to Pshat, there is no question. We think there's a question, but there is no question. Or alternatively, or the only other way of understanding this is that Rashi actually did address this in a previous Rashi. So with this preamble, the Rebbe says, so based on what we know about how Rashi operates, we need an explanation for a verse in our parsha, the Maimer HaKosov, when the Torah says, the pasuk says, and this again is pasuk Aleph in Perek Chav Hey, if there will be a quarrel between two people, v'nikshu el mishpat, and they approach the court, batum, and the court will judge them, v'tzdiku es hatzadik, and the judges will then vindicate the righteous person, v'yeshu es harasha, and they will condemn or find liable the wicked person. That's the pasuk. Hatevos, now the words v'tzdiku es hatzadik v'yeshu es harasha, that they will vindicate the innocent person and they will find liable the wicked person, l'chayra miyutaris. Seemingly, these are redundant, these are superfluous words. Because this is something self-understood. That if you go to a court, the whole point of going to a court is for the court to adjudicate. And when there are two parties who are quarreling, one of them is going to be found vindicated, one of them is going to be right, one of them is going to be innocent, and one of them is going to be wrong. So why does the pasuk have to engage in this elongated explanation? V'haya l'kasav leimarak. The pasuk should have just said ki yeriv, when there will be a quarrel, ushvatum, and they will go to a court and they will be judged. V'haya im bin ha'kais harasha. And then go into the next pasuk. And then if the wicked person is liable for beating, the court will appoint people to flog them properly. In other words, why say the obvious? The Lama Rashi, Eina Miyashiv is Yitur Halashon Kan. And so the question is, why does Rashi not address the seemingly extra verbiage here? And we know that there's no extra verbiage in the Torah. So if it seems extra, then Rashi should have addressed it, and Rashi does not. Now the Rebbe brings possible ways of explaining this. Lagabe hanemar v'yeshuas harasha, when we're looking at the clause, and the wicked one will be found guilty, haya efsher lahamis b'doichek al kol panim, you could posit, you could suggest, even though it's a stretch, b'kavanas hatevos elu, you could say that the intention of these words are shehim bois kahakdama umavoy lenemar v'haya im bin hakais harasha. You could say that the words that the guilty one will be found, that the wicked one will be found guilty, comes as a preface to the next pasuk, which is that then that person will be flogged. Kiloimar, that is to say, zed bar hakasav ki yeriv. The pasuk is trying to say like this: when there will be a quarrel, v'yeshuas harasha, and then the wicked or the wrong party will be found negligent or guilty or whatever. Hine im hu rasha mechuyev malkais. So if this is a wicked person that is liable for flogging, v'hayim bin hakais harasha azay v'hipilu gaimer. So then you go into the next pasuk. Then the wicked person, if the wicked person is liable for beating, then the judge shall have him bend over and then beat him on his front the amount of lashes for one part of his wickedness, and it'll be the amount, the number of lashes will be in conformity with what he is deserving of for that particular crime. So Rebbe says, for the words v'yeshuas harasha, we could find an explanation. It still seems to be redundant, so it's a little bit forced, but you could say it's the connective tissue between pasuk aleph and pasuk beis. Avol, but noisef al kach shazehu doichek gadol, in addition to the fact that this is a little bit of a stretch, seif hayisafa v'yeshuas harasha miyuteres, because at the end of the day, saying that the rasha is found guilty is extra. Like, isn't that what you go to the court for? To adjudicate a dispute and find out who's innocent and who's guilty? Shekain min hanemer v'hayim bin hakais harasha shamanu mimela sheniskayim kan v'yeshuas harasha. Because from the next pasuk, when it says you're going to flog the rasha, we understand that this person has been found guilty. So it just seems completely redundant. The Rebbe says on top of that, adarabah. On the contrary, not only is it redundant, it also causes a level of confusion. Haloshen v'yeshuas harasha, because the term and the Rasha, the wicked one, will be found guilty. Noisenis makam litais. It gives rise to a possible mistake, which Rashi actually addresses in his words on Vershuas Harasha. Noisenis makam litais ki yachal kol hamischayvim bedin loikin, that you might think that every person that is found guilty in any kind of based in for any kind of purpose automatically is flogged, automatically gets malchus, automatically gets beaten. Talmud Laimar, so the pasuk has to tell us, V'haya imbina kaisarasha, that it will be if this wicked person is liable for malchus, then the pasuk tells us what will happen next. So not only do the words v'yeshuas harasha, not only are they redundant, but they also could give rise to a misapprehension of what's supposed to happen here, which leads us back to our questions with greater strength, which is why put in the words v'yeshu es harasha, v'tzdiku es hatzadik v'yeshu es harasha. It seems self-evident for one, and the words v'yeshu es harasha, which maybe you want to claim that that's just the bridge between Pasuk Aleph and Pasuk Beis, those words serve to cause more problems than to bring clarity. And so we're back to our question. Hari adayan eno muvan. Hatevas v'tzdiku gomer lefi pshuto shel mikra l'shem ma nemru. So v'yeshuas harasha, maybe we could find an explanation, but the Rebbe says on the other hand, it comes with a deficit, an additional deficit. But we have no explanation whatsoever for the words v'tzdiku as a tzaddik, that the innocent person will be vindicated. What do we need that for? That's what you go to Beis Din for. Okay. Then the Rebbe says, v'efshar loymar, and you cannot reconcile this question b'pshuta shel mikra that is found in the Pshat. Sheyesh kan oid tzivui u'mitzvah asay ladun din emes. Maybe you want to say that the reason for the extra verbiage is because this is yet another place in the Torah where the Torah commands us to adjudicate properly. Al derech shematzinu kamalavin be'inyan loisata mishpat. Like we found already a number of prohibitions where the Torah says that you should not you should not be involved in a miscarriage of justice. But the Rebbe says, no, it's not just another place telling us the same thing. Ki me'arichus lashon hamikra, ki yeriv v'nigash v'shafatum, because from the elongated way in which the Torah presents this, if there'll be a quarrel and the two people will approach the Beis Din and the Beis Din will judge the case, mashma, it's understood, sha'kasuv ba lahashmiya kan inin chadash, that this pasuk is coming to teach us something new. So we can't just say that the extra verbiage is just underscoring something that the Torah told us already a number of times, that we must be very, very careful that justice be administered properly. Beis. Now the Rebbe is going to bring in an explanation from the Sifri, an explanation from the Gemara, and is going to say, but neither one of these explanations jibes with Rashi's mandate to reconcile questions that arise in traditional mikra. So it can't be that this is what Rashi has in mind. Sif Beis. The first thing that the Rebbe brings down is a Sifri. B'Sifri matzinu manda amar. In the Sifri, we find an opinion. Shemina nemar v'tzdiku as a tzaddik, that from the words and the innocent one shall be vindicated, yesh lilmoid, we can learn, tzadkeu kedei shelo yilke, that you should vindicate him in order that he should not be flogged. V'hainu, this means, kafisha pirshu zaysam mefarshim, that the mefarshim explain that what this means. Sheyesh liftayach bischus, that first of all, when a case comes before a court of judgment, the first thing you have to do is try to find a merit on both parties. In other words, you should approach this lechatchila that they're both innocent, they both mean well, they're both right. Lechapes l'chol al bal hadin kedei shelo yilke. So if one person is being brought by another person and the second person says that they're definitely guilty, the Beis Din should first approach this with an open mind that they're definitely not guilty. Find a way shelo yilka, that they should not be flogged, that they should not be found guilty. Barak la'achar mikain, and only after you exhaust that possibility, lach karides initial rishos, then you begin to investigate if this person is actually wicked. But the first approach is to find vindication. And we find the same thing when it comes to capital punishment. Shahadinhu, the halacha is that when a Beis Din sits down to adjudicate a capital case, poischin bischos. First, you begin with finding merits for the person who is being indicted on this very, very serious charge. Okay, so the Sifri says the same thing with this quarrel. But the Rebbe says you can't say that Rashi is embracing this understanding of the pasuk, ki'im kain, because if indeed this is the way Rashi understands the pasuk, Rashi should have said this in full-throated manner. Because there is no logical reason to believe that the Ben Chamesh Lemikra or the Ben Chamishim Lemikra or the Ben Shivim Lemikra will come to this of their own seichel to understand the pasuk this way. So Rashi should have embraced the Sifri's understanding and explained it. And especially because for the Sifri, the Sifri expends effort to come to this explanation. In other words, it's not intuitive. It's not so simple that you would say that that's what the Torah is telling us. That v'tzdiku as hatzadik v'yeshu as harasha means how you, in which mindset you should approach the Beis Din. It's not intuitive. So we can't say that Rashi agrees with the Sifri because Rashi would have had to tell us that. Ubifrat. And especially because this explanation does not exactly align or dovetail with the terminology of the verse. The two things that these terms are referring to, that you should vindicate the righteous one, and you should find guilty the one who is wicked. Mechuvanim b'pashtus klape shnei b'nei adam nifradim. Al pi pshat, this is referring to the two principal parties that are in a quarrel. It's not referring to the mindset of the judges in judging the people. Shnei balei riv she'echad tzadik v'zula serasha. Al pi pshat, it's talking about two people that are arguing. One is right and one is wrong. But according to the Sifri's explanation, the pasuk is talking about one person and about how the judges should approach the person who is being indicted for a crime. First, you have to try to find a merit for this person. When it's impossible to find this person meritorious, then you have no choice, and you have to find guilty the wicked person. But this does not flow smoothly from the Pshuta Shel Mikra. And how much more so you can't say that Rashi is embracing what the Gemara explains on this pasuk. The Gemara explains as follows. That the pasuk here is talking about irreputable witnesses that were involved in a conspiracy. Hey idu v'yeshiwas atzadik. They came, they testified, but they're liars. They're wicked people. They testified against somebody. Ula'achar became, and after their testimony, asu edim acharini, other edim came, other witnesses came, v'tzdiku es atzadik, the mikara. And they, through their testimony, vindicated the person who was always a tzaddik. But the other Adim that came before just had an axe to grind with that person. They were engaged in some kind of conspiracy, and they gave false testimony. And the witnesses that came afterwards were able to prove that there was no way that those two witnesses were in the vicinity of the crime, that what they said was true. And this is the halacha of Adim Zaymimin. Witnesses that are false witnesses. Vishavinu lahani rishoyim. And so now, when it says v'hishiu es harasha, it's talking about the Eidim Zaymimin. They are judged to be wicked. And the halacha is that they actually get the punishment that would have come upon the person that they were trying to indict falsely. Okay, so that's how the Gemara reads this pasuk. And then v'haya im bin hakais rasha, shehainu shemechuyavam b'malkais. And then the next pasuk says, and it will be that if they will be mechuyav b'malkais. So the Gemara says, yes, they will get the punishment that they wanted to bring upon the person that they were framing through their false testimony. So the Rebbe says, no, Rashi, this is not what Rashi has in mind, and for this reason, Rashi is silent, because this is what it means. And it's outlandish to say that this is so easily read into the pasuk that Rashi doesn't have to say anything. So now the Rebbe has strengthened his question. Why is Rashi silent? Has brought alternative ways of understanding the pasuk. Has disabused us of the thought that Rashi agrees with these other explanations. And now the Rebbe is going to present his explanation as to why Rashi is silent here. Gimel. V'yesh loymar, we might say, Shatam l'kach sharashi einay roya tzarich liyashiv she'elazu. That the reason why Rashi does not see it necessary for him to reconcile this question. And again, the question is, why these extra terms? We know that there are no extra words in the Torah. The reason for this, why does Rashi not give any explanation? Because it's already understood from what he told us on the beginning of the pasuk, on the words ki riv. So let's look into the Rashi. On the words ki riv, Rashi says, Seifem liyos nigashim el mishpat. If there is a quarrel, then they will end up approaching the court to judge them. And mar me'ata, you can conclude from this, ein shalom yotze mitoich meriva, that peace cannot result from a quarrel. Mi garam leloit lifresh min tzaddik. And what caused Lot to separate himself from the tzaddik Avraham? Hevei Omer Zumariva. It was the quarrel between their shepherds. Dihine. Al devarim elu misaresh elu kamoshe hikshu hamefarshim. Ma chisaron yesh kan bekach shasefim liyas negashim el mishpat. So based on what Rashi is telling us, we have a new question, and that is, okay, so what's the problem? Rashi says if there's going to be a quarrel, the end is they're going to approach a beis din. So isn't that what you're supposed to do? Like, what's the problem? It would seem just the opposite. Through their approach of the beis din, they'll have their quarrel adjudicated, and then there'll be peace. Like the Torah tells us that the nation will be judged, and the whole nation will benefit from this that there is a system of courts and justice, and there'll be shalom. So why is Rashi saying that there'll be a quarrel, and the end will be that they're going to come to judges? And from here we see that no peace comes from quarrels. But mizu, and the question is even bigger. The wonder is even bigger. Mikayr shall perish Rashi zehu b'sifri. The source for Rashi's explanation on the words ki riv, if there will be a quarrel, is from the Sifri. Avol sham nusach hadvarim hu, but in the Sifri's terminology is different. It's as follows: Ein shalom yotze miteich meriva. Peace cannot come out of a quarrel. Mi garam lazel lilkais heve'aymezu meriva. What causes a person to be flogged by the Beis Din? You should say it is quarreling. Hainu shahameriva gairemesh shaploini yilka. That quarrel causes that a certain person should have to be flogged. V'ilu Rashi shina miloshen hasifri, but Rashi changes. He diverts the terminology from the Sifri. Utmurs hatevas garam lazel lilkais, and instead of importing the terminology of the Sifri, that the quarrel causes this person to be flogged, Kasav Rashi says, Soifam liyas nigashim el mishpat. The end will be that they will approach the court. So what? So what? Isn't that what we want people to do if they have a quarrel? In other words, why is Rashi framing it as this terrible result from a quarrel? What's going to happen from a quarrel? They're going to approach the court. The Rebbe says explanation is as follows. Rashi b'peirushay ba liyashev. Rashi, with his explanation on the words kiyer riv, the Rebbe is now going to teach us, is coming to teach us two things. Number one, that the words v'yirshiu es harasha v'hitzdik es hatzadik, that's not redundant, that's not superfluous. But he's also coming to explain as shimush hakasuv kan b'lashon riv, the usage of the word riv in this pasuk. Why does this need to be addressed? Because matzinu bekama mekayim shesichsuch ben shnei anashim hamuva lefnei hashayfet mitzuyim b'tarei b'vitui davar. Because we find in many places that an altercation or a dispute or a fight or a quarrel between two people that is brought before a Beis Din is referred to with the term davar, a thing. If there'll be a thing, there'll be an issue. I think today we would use the word issue. That's the word that's used in the Torah. Valderach dugma, and the Rebbe brings two examples. Ki elahem davar ba elai v'shafati ben ishu ben re'ehu. This is Moshe saying if there'll be an issue, they should come to me and I will adjudicate between them. And me, who will come? Baal devarim yigash aleim. The people who have this issue shall come to the court. Masha enkein halashon riv. 1 second, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. One pasuk is ki elahem davar ba elai v'shafati ben ishu ben re'ehu, and then the other pasuk is mi bal devarim yigash alehem. One is in Yisrael, one is in Mishpatim. Masha enkein, but in contradistinction, halashon riv, the term we have in our pasuk riv, mishameshes al piroiv klapi mavak she'oisei bali hariv eina mevim l'mishpat. But in the aggregate, usually the word riv in the Torah describes a struggle between two people that they do not bring to a court to adjudicate. They have a struggle, they have a fight, they have a dispute, they have an issue, and it festers and they fight it out. They don't bring it to the court. Like what Rashi references, that there was this issue, this fight, this struggle between the shepherds of Avram and the shepherds of Lot. The Rebbe brings down two other examples on top of the one about the shepherds Avram and Leit, where the word riv or vayarivu or yirivun, okay, all from the same etymon are employed, and the connotation is completely different. The connotation is that these people don't bring it to a court for adjudication. So why is the pasuk using the word riv here? And so Rashi's reconciling the question of why doesn't our pasuk use the word davar and not the word riv? And we can prove this from Onklos. Onklos tirgem as tebas riv sheba pasuk didan. How does Onklos translate the word riv in our pasuk? Loi matsusa. He does not translate it as a quarrel or an argument. Like in most of the places where it says riv. Ella, but Unclus defines the word riv here, din, a lawsuit. So if it's clearly a lawsuit, v'imkein lama mishtamesh hakasav kan b'teva riv dafka v'loi b'vitui davar. Why this anomalous term within the context, clearly within the context of a court case? Why employ a term that connotes a quarrel that does not get brought to court? Valkach mefarish Rashi. And so this is what Rashi's coming to explain on his, and in his commentary on the words kiyeh riv. Kiyeh riv. When there will be a quarrel, seifim lias nigashim el mishpat. At the end, they will come before the court. And mar me'ata, you could say from here, from now, ein shalom yetzi miteich meriba. Kilaymar. This is to say, what is Rashi trying to teach us? Hamedubar kan hu sichsuch ba'oifen shel riv. Rashi is saying that this is an argument that is conceptually and stylistically and psychologically a riv. It is a quarrel where the people are not looking for adjudication of what's right and what's wrong. And when you have a situation just like this, ein shalom yetze, afilu loy be'emtzos mishpat. These are not people that are looking to be confused with the facts. And so even through the agency of a beis din, they're not going to come to shalom. And perhaps we could say, just very, very quickly, that this really harkens back to the Rebbe Sikh of last week of the difference between midas and seichel. If you remember that. In other words, if you're approaching the beis din from the place of inquiry, intellectual inquiry, that's one thing. But if you're approaching the beis din from a place of riv, you're emotionally entrenched in this position, then even when the beis din adjudicates, shalom is not going to emerge from this. And this is a situation that Rashi is describing. Because generally, when there is a dispute between two people and it's not in the category of a riv, of a meriva, of a emotionally charged quarrel, yitachin sheyishtashru hahadurim beinehem v'hasichsuch yavi l'shalom. Then it is absolutely possible that they will reconcile their differences, and the dispute will be resolved peacefully. Im al yidei zeh sheyasu pshara beinam levein atzmam, v'im al yidei zeh shebeis din yimtza pshara beinehem. Either they will make some kind of a pshara when both give a little bit. Help me with the word here.
Compromise.
Either they will come to a compromise, or the beis din will impose a compromise upon them. Va'afilu b'matzav sheboi beis din machlik shehatzedek hu lechalut nimtzad echad. And even in cases where the beis din decides that only one side is completely and absolutely correct. So there's no compromise. But because they're not entangled in an emotionally charged fight, and they are actually seeking the truth. So even when the court is going to come down squarely on the side of one of them, it's also going to lead to peace. But when it's a fight, an emotionally charged fight, because the dispute has turned into a struggle, a full-blown, emotionally charged struggle, there's no way that peace is going to come out of this. Despite the fact that they will come before the court for adjudication. Based in Yachria Bipsakdin Chatuch Mihu Hazaka Mihu Chayev. And the Based in will decide in very clear-cut fashion who is meritorious and who is liable. Aval Gam La'achar Psak Hadin Ein Shalom Yetzi. But even after that, there won't be peace. Va'al Nekuda Zu Rashi Mevi Raya V'Dugma Malut. And it's on this particular scenario that Rashi brings a proof and brings a very clear example. Mi garam leloit lifresh min hatzadik hebe aimer zumeriva. Lot and Avram were related. They had filial contacts. They were friends. They were close. But what caused them to part from each other? It was this kind of emotionally charged quarrel or squabble. Seemingly, seemingly this was a dispute between the shepherds of Lot and the shepherds of Avram. So for this, Lot should go away from Avram. Avram v'Lot mitzad atzmo hayu anoshim achim. They were brothers. They were relatives. They were. But once this type of a quarrel, an emotionally charged quarrel broke out, they couldn't remain in one place. The light and Lot had to separate from the tzaddik, had to separate from Avram. Dalit. Now the Rebbe says, based on this new understanding of what kind of case we are talking about, what's the back end story of this case? Now it's easy to understand what comes next. What seemingly seems superfluous is not at all given the context that Rashi has taught us. Because according to what Rashi has taught us, this is exactly what the pasuk wants to explain. Asher ki riv, when there will be this type of case. Again, these are not two people who have some kind of objective dispute. These are two people who are emotionally locked in a quarrel. Hine ein shalom yetze. Peace is not going to emerge from this. Shalom lo yitzmach mikach. Peace is not going to sprout forth from this kind of case. Afilu lo b'emtzos mishpat, even not through adjudication by a court. Lefi sheha mishpat kan hu ba'ofen shel v'tzdiku as a tzaddik v'yirshiu es harasha. Why won't it help? Because what's going to happen is the court is going to vindicate the innocent person and going to find guilty the one who is liable. And the problem is that we're not talking about two parties who are objectively seeking the truth. And if they would be looking objectively for the truth, and they would simply be coming to the court to say, you know what, We need the court to have some remove from this situation and more wisdom than we have to tell us the truth, and then we'll be at peace with it. Ella echad hinei tzaddik v'zlo Russia. It's not the case that they're looking for the truth, and they know one is tzaddik and one is Russia, one is right and one is wrong. In a situation where two people are coming seeking the truth, they're seeking objectivity, they're seeking the higher level wisdom that the Beis Din has, then they know that one of them is right and one of them is wrong. And they're coming to the court to clarify who it is. And this is why the pasuk says that the words that seemingly are extra, v'tztiku as a tzaddik, v'yeshiu as a rasha. But that's not the case. And that's why there's not going to be shalom from this. Sorry. And so we might say, the Rebbe says, al derech ofen halimud shebegemara, in line with what the Gemara teaches, shebekach hakasuv mavir yisera mizu, that in this way the pasuk is further illuminating. V'tztiku es hatzadik demiikara. Another lesson that you take out of this is that the pasuk is saying that if and when these two people were to come to a court case with the right set of mind, then the person who is innocent will be proven innocent completely from the beginning, demikara, from the source. Perush, kasher Beis Din tzedek matzdik l'gamre se'echad. When a righteous Beis Din truly completely vindicates one of the parties, soifei shel davar shenitan yeh lirais ki gam b'negei l'riv ha'machlekes kan hala hinu tzadik ve'ein ba kol ashma. Then it will be clear that even regarding this very quarrel, this person is completely innocent. Let me explain. Usually when two people quarrel, we say it takes two to tango. It takes two to fight. So nobody's innocent. If one of them would really be innocent, there wouldn't be the fight to begin with. So the Rebbe says, in addition to what Rashi explaining about the word kiyeh riv, explaining that it's not extra, that the pasuk is telling us that this is not a case where people are coming to seek the truth, because in truth, one person's going to be right, one person's going to be wrong, but there's more than this. And the more than this is, the v'tztiku es a tzaddik, what's going to emerge from this is that the righteous person, there's no fault on this person's part for the sichsuch, for the argument to begin with. The ein by kol ashma, he has no fault. Hariv noitzar mitzidoi shel harasha, v'noitzar miyuchas l'rasha, v'ilu zulasai harehu tzadik, v'tztiku as a tzadik demikar. The riv, the whole quarrel, was created by the Rasha and remains attributed to the Rasha. And if not for him, the other person would just be a tzaddik. And this just underscores v'tztiku as a tzaddik demikara, that he's just right from the beginning. Now, the Rashi, the Sikha seems to come to a lurching end, as it were, leaving us to ponder what we can learn from this. And far be from me to say, I'll just say what came to my mind, which doesn't mean this is the lesson, but what came to my mind is what we are undergoing now in the alleged court of public opinion in the world. Israel is being framed. Israel is being indicted in the most ludicrous way possible. And I think the Rebbe is saying it's like the ultimate statement, the ultimate anti-woke statement, the ultimate statement against moral relativism. Like, Israel can't be completely innocent. Yeah, the Palestinians do something wrong, but we also do things wrong. And I'm not saying that Israel has never made mistakes, but I think you understand what I'm saying here. Anyway, that's what came to my mind because we're always so quick to say, every fight means that both parties are wrong. And the Rebbe say, no, there actually is something called right, and there's something called wrong. And they're two different things. Just like there's something called a woman and there's something called a man, and they're two different things. But in the world that we live in, there's so much like confusion and obfuscation and muddying the waters. But again, I'm not saying that's the lesson to take out of it. I'm saying what jumped out at me, and also the connection to last week's Sikha. But love to hear everybody's voices.
I actually find this remarkable